Good evening, class. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know I'm a little bit behind in posting videos, so I'm going to be posting Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. Sorry, Chapter 6 and Chapter 8. We're going to skip 7 or combine 7 with Chapter 6. But I'm going to go over those classes today or in this video, and then do a video for Chapter 8, hopefully to get us to Thanksgiving. A few things. Don't worry about the... yeah, so that's where we're gonna start. So let's go ahead and let's get started with chapter 6 and 7 in this video. All right, so in chapter 6, we're going to talk about a few things. One's going to be the while loop and how that is used in the context of programming. We're also going to look at a for loop, a do while loop, nested loops, and ways to improve loop performances. So to start off, what a loop basically does is it runs a section of code again and again and again until a condition is basically met. You have a structure that allows repeated execution of a box of statements, if you want the actual term. Okay, a loop body is going to be that block of code that's going to be executed when you enter this loop. And an iteration is defined as one execution of any type of loop. There are 3 different types of loops that we're going to be using and discussing. One is going to be while. The other one is for. Sorry, let's back up. While is a loop controlling Boolean expression. So while something is true or while something is false, we're going to go into this while loop. A for loop is a concise format in which we execute a concise format in which to execute the loop. So it's going to be a specific condition that needs to be met, and it's going to run for X amount of times. And then do while is a loop that's controlled by a Boolean expression as the last statement. Some things that we can look at here is this would be a loop section. So we have the Boolean expression. If true, we're going to do the loop body, and then it repeats back. If the expression is true again, we're going to loop back until it's false. And then if it's false, it's going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so how we create these loops is we're going to start off with a while loop. Let me go to... let's open a folder. Open our code folder. There we go. Close you, because we want to go to our main function. Okay. All right, so a while loop executes a body of statements continually until a Boolean expression is met. So if something is true, then it's going to continue running until that condition is false. The key word for this is going to be while, followed by a Boolean expression with parentheses. And we're going to get into an example here in a moment. There is the body, which is going to be this, the statement of code that we're going to use. A definite loop or counted loop, programmers know the exact amount of times or the amount of iterations the loop will run. And an indefinite loop is a programmer can't predict how many times a loop will run. Initializing the loop control a variable, the variable whose value determines whether loop execution continues. While the loop control variable does not pass a limiting value, the program consists to execute the body of the while loop. Okay, so essentially, let's see, we're looking at our main code here, and we have a switch system.outprint. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this switch statement, this end of code. So basically, a while loop would be while, okay, and we're going to do item sold equals 10. And then it's going to be followed by, so this is the while, so that's the keyword. This is the condition that we're wanting met, item sold equals 10, because right now it's set to 10, so it makes it easy. And then you're going to do curly brackets. Now you can have the curly bracket there, or you can have it on its own line. And then everything within those curly brackets will be ran within this while loop, and we'll continue going until you have either a break statement or if you have a condition met. So I can put in here a system Yeah, system.out.print, and we're going to do this is a statement. Okay. Now, if I run this down here on our terminal, let's see. Where is this error message? Import right there. Preview feature enable. All right, so I had to update my Visual Studio Code because that was the issue that was keeping this from running. Let's get back to our file. So if I hit F5 right now, because I've already tested it, you can see this is a statement. Terminate batch job, yes. Let me run this. Hang on, I gotta cancel it. There you go. You can see that this is a statement is running a whole bunch of times because it's an indefinite loop. So it's going to keep looping because I don't have a statement in there to break out of this loop. Now, if I had the word break after this, just like that, and then run this code, you'll see that it's going to print once. This is a statement, and then break out of that loop. And so you need that break to break out of this loop once whatever you're trying to get it to do finishes. Okay. So as long as item sold equals 10, this while loop will continue. Okay. The next loop that we're going to take a look at is going to be well, first, let's get into some pitfalls of the while loop. So prevent the while loop from executing indefinitely. So right now what you see on my screen is really bad code. So we want to do something like that because we want to do a while loop in this manner because it will run indefinitely. There's nothing to actually break it out. The named loop control variable is initialized to a starting value. So that's basically meaning this is initialized to a starting value. The loop control variable is tested in the while loop. If the test expression is true, the body of the while statement takes action, and the test of the while statement must eventually equal to false. Okay, so failing to alter the loop control variable within the body, so that means changing it within the body, we don't want to do that either. Okay, and then you can review some of the other things if you read the book and review the PowerPoint. Now, one of the best ways to actually handle a indefinite loop where you don't know how many times this loop is going to run is by having a event controlled loop where once the end user alters the program or puts in like a command such as enter, or you have conditions met that are changed within the while loop, that will help it break out. So that's one of the things that we should look at to be able to use user input to break out of a command. So if we have this main program here, and we have a few things here, what I want to do, or a few pieces of code, what I want to do is I'm going to set up a scanner keyboard so that I can receive user input. So I'm going to do keyboard equals new scanner system.in, so that I can bring in that user input to break out of a while loop when I need to. Let's do a system.out.print and do enter a value for item sold, and then do a keyboard dot, sorry, not keyboard, we're going to do item sold equals keyboard dot next int. which is going to read in that value and then should assign each item sold. Item sold cannot be resolved to, oh, item sold. There we go. Spelled it wrong. So what that's going to do, what that keyboard.next is going to do is it's going to read the input that the user, me being the user, puts into the program. So once I put in a value, it's going to read it into here for us to use. So if I set item sold 10, I'm going to just make that a 1 to initialize it. So if I do F5 right now, it says enter a value for items sold. I'm going to say 10 because I know what the condition is for this while loop to execute. And I have this as a statement, so you can see that I've satisfied that condition and it prints out the statement. What it can do after that to break out, well, I have that breakout, break here. So that's a action that's considered a event control loop. So I go into this loop once that condition is met, and I can run this loop as many times until I hit a break, or I can have an if-else statement in here to have a conditional break. One thing that loops are really good at is validating data. So validating your data ensures a value falls within a specific range, and so you can use that with different types of loops. Use indefinite loops to validate inputs of data. And if a user enters correct, incorrect data, then the loop repeats, or things like that, so that you can control the data within your loop. So to take a look at an example right here, we have while user entry is greater than the limit, the while loop, this while statement controls the loop and how long it's going to run. And then this is the body between the curly braces of that loop. So something to keep in mind. Now, while you're working with a loop, let's say if you want to concatenate words together, or if you want to do a summation of a lot of values, you can use a shortcut arithmetic operations, and Java provides several different ones. So you have this plus equals, which is an assign operator. So add the value to the variable and do it again and again and again in a loop as long as you have a plus equals. That goes the same with the minus equals for subtraction. The ampersand equals, is that an ampersand or star, whatever you want to call it, multiplication, division, and the remainder. So you could do that again. So an example of that would be, let's say we go into this loop, okay, and we have a variable of int number equals 1. So that's us initializing it, and then we're going to do number plus equals 1. And then we could do a print, system dot out dot print. We're just going to print out number. So if we run this, item sold, we're going to say 10 because I know how to do it. So we got 2. Yep, so it's printing out 2. But I did this with this plus equals 1. It went ahead and increased that value from 1 to 2. And then repeated it a bunch of times. Too much for my log to see. All right, so let's talk about the for loop. Now, for loops is used for a definite number of loops that you want to do, or iterations that you want to do. So that's kind of a requirement for this. One convenient statement indicates the starting value where the loop is going to begin at for the loop's control variable, the test condition that controls the loop entry, and then the expression that alters the loop's control variable. So once the loop is done, there is a variable to finish it out. So to create it, we're going to take a look at, we're going to do for, and then again the parentheses, and we're going to say for items sold equals 1, colon, items sold, it's going to be less than 10, and then we're going to do plus plus items sold. Okay, and then we're going to do those curly brackets. Now what this is going to do is it's going to set our variable item sold to equal to 1. So that's going to be the starting point of our for loop. With items sold is less than 10, so while this value is less than 10, we're going to stay in this for loop. And then this plus items sold is going to increase the item sold variable by 1 for each iteration. So if I do system.out.print, and we're going to do items sold, we should be able to see it increase by 1 and then print out here. So you can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items sold. So this loop repeated itself a total of 9 times. If I started here at 0, oops, and then ran it, oops, start at 0, you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or sorry, 0 through 9, which is 10 times. And that's basically what a for loop does. Unconventional for loops initialize one or more values, and that's something that you don't want to do. You use commas to separate those statements. So if I had item sort equals 0 and do another variable after that, such as another number, I'll just put num equals 5 or 4. Do I have to define it? There we go. Had to define it up there so that I could call it here. Performance of more than one test using and or. So when for items sold equals 0. Oh, sorry. So that's 2 or more variables. If we're testing for a certain condition, which falls into the second parameter, if you want to call it, we could do items sold is less than 10 and another num is greater than 5. And that will be just another condition that we can do there. There we go. So you have to use the and operator right there. So that's going to be 2 ampersands. And then or is seen as 2 parallel lines for or when it comes to conditions. So you can have conditions here if you need more than one condition met for a for loop. And then lastly, you have the plus, which is going to increase that iteration. Now the last loop that we're going to take a look at is called the do while loop. So that's basically do this while some condition is met, and then once that condition is not met, then we're going to go ahead and break out of that condition. Okay, so a do while loop as a pre-test loop is what it's similar to. It checks the value of the loop control variable before the loop body. As a post loop, checks the value of the loop control variable. Sorry, the loop control variable is just if I had this for loop, this is the control variable for this loop, right? For this for loop. For a while loop, if I had while item sold equals 0, okay, this item sold here that doesn't, oh sorry, equals. This item sold here is a control variable for this while loop. So that's what a control loop is. Sorry, that's what a variable is. Yeah, here is a diagram of what that will look like. So we have the loop body, and at the end it tests of the loop if the control variable is true. So it checks again to see if that variable is true, and then it passes back up if it's true, and if it's false, it continues on with your code. An example of this would be if we have do okay, and we're going to do items sold equals 15. So we're going to just change that value to 15. We need to do a system.out.print. This worked. Just like that. And then at the end of the do, we need a while, and item sold equals 0. And that's going to be the do while. And so the test is here at the bottom or at the end of the this statement. So if we hit F5, I'm going to put in 15. Oop, put that in the wrong spot. Put 0. And you can see that it entered into this loop, which is kind of backwards, but that this worked and then ended the loop. And so that's just a do while loop. Now you can do nested loops if you need to, where you have an inner loop and an outer loop. An inner loop must be entirely contained in an outer loop for it to work properly. Loops can never overlap. To prevent 3 mailing address for 20 customers, it will look like 4 customers equals 1. Customer is less than or equal to 20, and then increase the customer by 1. And then we're doing for color equals 1. Color is less than or equal to 3 plus color output label. So it's going to output 3 labels per person. And so you can see here, test of outer loop control variable, true. Test of inner loop variable, true. Body of inner loop goes back to here and repeats the inner loop until it's false. Once it's false, it goes back out to the main loop to see if the main loop is done. If it's true, it will go back into the inner loop until it's false, and then continues on with your code. Ways to improve your loop performance would be to make sure a loop does not include any unnecessary operations or statements. Consider the order of evaluation for short circuit operations, and then make comparisons to 0. Employ loop fusion to combine loops if you need to. Some of those unnecessary operations would be x is less than a plus b. And the loop body, instead you can use a int sum a plus b. And then, so like basically do that a plus b, that arithmetic, outside of the while loop condition, and then bring in x is less than the sum. So those are just things that you should keep in mind. Other things that you should not do: don't insert a semicolon at the end of a while loop. You don't need that. The brackets here of all the loops really. The curly bracket ends that loop. Don't forget to block multiple statements that should execute in that loop. Don't make the mistake of checking for invalid data using a decision instead of a loop. And then don't repeat steps within a loop that could just well be placed outside of a loop as well. And that's going to conclude this video over the loops. We got the while loop. We have the for loop, and then the do while loop, to keep those in mind. And then I ask that y'all go ahead and just review the PowerPoint and your chapter to make sure that you don't miss anything. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll see y'all next time.